What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another video. I'm not sure how many more videos I've got in me before the holidays really kick in earnest around the Action Figure Grader household, but I thought I would sneak in a few recent sales within the CGC-Graded Star Wars comic book world. There were a bunch of really interesting sales, and there's some interesting news out there as it relates to the Book of Boba Fett. The Book of Boba Fett comes out in, I think, 6 days. And it just came out that it looks like Harrison Ford has filmed kind of a cameo type of scene where they're going to kind of de-age Harrison Ford for a Han Solo appearance. Probably it will be very similar to Luke Skywalker's appearance at the end of Season 2 of The Mandalorian. But that has been confirmed by multiple sources. So we are going to be seeing Han Solo in the Book of Boba Fett. So that should be really cool. But let's go ahead and dig right in regarding some CGC 9.8 Star Wars sales, everything from vintage to modern books. And I want to emphasize, as I always do, that I'm only doing 9.8 grades for this video just to keep things apples to apples. That's not me trying to be a snob. You can adjust, accordingly with your budget, depending on what you like to collect, whether it's ungraded books or, books that are maybe a 9.6 or 9.4, whatever it is. But this is the first one I want to talk about because this is one that's on my short list for next year, and that is Star Wars number 71. And it's a great cover. It's got Han Solo in carbonite, Lando and Luke, kind of a stylized version of Luke there. But this is kind of pertaining to, they're kind of filling in the backstory for Han Solo in carbonite. Probably, very similar to what we saw, with the War of the Bounty Hunters, and how Boba Fett had kept gaining and losing the Han and Carbonite block to other kind of competing factions. I'm sure that's what this book covers, a very similar story except from Lando and Luke's perspective. But this is one that's interesting because it has Bossk, the bounty hunter, the Trandoshan lizard bounty hunter that we all know and love. That's his first full comic book appearance, is in Star Wars number 71. And I really think that we'll see Bossk show up in the Book of Boba Fett. If you read any of the expanded universe novels from the mid-1990s, like the Bounty Hunters Guild trilogy, things like that, Bossk and Boba Fett don't like each other very much. They have a very competitive kind of nature, and I bet they pull from that at least they pull that relationship between Boba Fett and Bossk. We've already seen some Trandoshans in the teasers for the Book of Boba Fett, and we've seen some Tessics, the squid head type of looking people. I bet we'll see some Phalines. It looked like there might have been a Phaline or two in some of the trailers. So Prince Zizor's got a chance, as we've already talked about. But I would really look at this book. And this one sold for $350, and that seems to be about the going rate. It was an older style case, and I have gotten that question, like, how do you know it's an older style case? Well, the white pages, which is towards the middle of the page here, that is now right here, and there's a different inner liner that they use, and just other kind of things like that to try and minimize Newton rings, which is a defect. Now, all that being said, I still get Newton rings and scuffs and things like that on the inner well of graded books direct from CGC. So their product is still really inferior, in my opinion. They need to do something to prevent Newton rings, which are kind of like rings, rainbow colored rings that show up because of how the inner well connects with the acrylic case on the outside, and just lots of defects that I think that CGC needs to improve on this year. But their cases are getting better though, and I've noticed definitely a heavier kind of plastic or acrylic that they're using for more recent releases versus some of these older cases. But anyway, that $350 is about the going rate for that book, and I think that if we do see Bossk, that number could go up. But as I've mentioned in the past, I don't see Bossk becoming a major player or a major character where he's going to have a significant recurring role, but maybe I'm wrong. A couple of the Shadows of the Empire books, speaking of Prince Zizor, Shadows of the Empire number 1 sold for about $240. This same seller had a few others, but Shadows of the Empire number 1 is the one to get because it's got the first cameo of Dash Rendar as well as the first full comic book appearance of Prince Zizor. I mispronounced his name again. Shizor is how a couple of subscribers have told me you pronounce what I thought was a Zizor, but it's Shizor. So this is Shadows of the Empire number 2. It's a great cover. It's got Bossk on there. It looks like it's got Zuckuss, Boba Fett, obviously, and This is the first full comic appearance of Dash Rendar, and I think one of the bounty hunters. I can't remember which one, whether it's Zuckuss or Forlom. That one sold for $177. That's a big number. That's way higher than the last few sales. That's up like, that's a good solid 60 or 70% higher versus where this book has been selling. Traditionally, it's been more like, you know, $100. But now it's $177, and I think it's because of the Prince Xizor's news that, you know, he showed up in Crimson Reign. So be on the lookout for this Shadows of the Empire series, 1 through 5. There's 6 of them, but 1 through 5 all have first appearances. I think every one of those books are going to continue to go up. Here's Shadows of the Empire number 3. Again, it's either Forlom or Zuckuss that has their first appearance. That one sold for $112. That's also quite a bit higher. This is the one that I thought was interesting. This is Shadows of the Empire number 6, and while it doesn't have any first appearances, so to speak, it does have Prince Xizor on the cover. And this was one that you don't see come up very often, you know, in a CGC 9.8. There's not many of them on the census at all. I think there's like 17 total. And people really paid up for this one. This one sold for $130, which is about a little less than what I paid for Shadows of the Empire number 1, which is his first full comic book appearance. So I think it's because this one just is so hard to find in a 9.8 grade. It's a pretty difficult book to get in that high of a grade. But that one sold for $130. And as I mentioned, I couldn't find it for some reason, but he did have Shadows of the Empire number 1 in this same auction, and that one sold for about $240 altogether. So that gives you some data points here if you want to pick up some Xizor and some of the other bounty hunter keys ahead of the Book of Boba Fett next week. This is one that Chris W. from my live streams and from Rogue 5 Toys on Facebook, he picked this one up at my recommendation, and I know that eventually he'll sell it to me because he doesn't really collect comics. But this was the promotional comic that was packed in with the Power of the Force 2 2-pack with Darth Vader and Prince Xizor. And it was graded a 9.8. There are only 3 other CGC 9.8 grades of this promotional comic. This one came out in May of 1996. It does have Xizor and Vader on the cover, a very epic cover. Shadows of the Empire is on the cover of that as well. But this is a Kenner Shadows of the Empire special, as it says in the lower or the upper left below the Dark Horse Comics logo. But this is a very difficult promotional comic to find in a 9.8 grade. Like I said, there's only 4 total on the census, but Chris W. picked it up, and hopefully he'll sell it to me at some point. Here is another one that I've talked about in the past, and it gives you another data point. This one's come back down again. Graveyard Moon, Star Wars Republic number 51. This is the first full comic book appearance of Dirge the Bounty Hunter. I still think there's a chance we see Dirge in live action content at some point. Maybe not. I doubt for the Book of Boba Fett, it wouldn't make much sense there, but I do think it would make sense for Obi-Wan, for him to show up, because he and Obi-Wan have that kind of conflict within the comics. I think Obi-Wan or Anakin, I can't remember. I think it was Obi-Wan that killed him, quote unquote, in the comics by force pushing him into a star, but they brought him back. You know, Marvel brought him back within Dr. Aphra number 11. So this is his first comic appearance. It still has not gone up at all. If anything, it's gone down. It was about 400 to 450. Then it got down to 350, and then 330, and then now the latest sale was 300 plus shipping. So that's a book that I really would consider. It doesn't have him on the cover. It doesn't have Dirge on the cover, but it's a great book. Another one that I would look at is Star Wars Clone Wars Adventures number 1. This is the free comic book day book from 2004. And this is not a very difficult book to find, but it is the first full comic book appearance of General Grievous. You can see there on the label. This is a nice cover, though. I like it. And especially with all the animated Clone Wars stuff that we're seeing coming out from Hasbro mid next year or spring of next year. It just seems like there's going to be more and more kind of animated Clone Wars style content coming out. We've already seen some of the Black Series reissue Tarkovsky, or however you pronounce, Clone Wars animated style figures that have already been coming out from Walmart. So this one sold for $360, which is a little higher than where it's been selling. It's been closer to $300 lately, so that's a good 20% jump in this book. So I think that the market is speaking that they think that Disney has more plans for these animated style Clone Wars figures, or Clone Wars kind of content, animated style Clone Wars content. But and having Grievous there, I think, is really cool. So maybe we'll see Grievous again in some content. Who knows? Another book I've talked about in the past, this one has gone up a little bit too. This is Star Wars Tales number 23. This is the first cameo. This is his first comic appearance of Darth Revan and Darth Malak in cameo. And this is the movie cover. There's also an actual illustration, comic illustration version of this same book. This one sold for $450. That's up. You know, that's up. That's gone up a little bit from 400-ish of where this one's been typically selling. So it seems like people are starting to think that the concept of a Darth Malak or Darth Revan or both coming to live action is coming. This is another one we've talked about, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic #0. This is the first appearance of Squint, who later becomes Darth Malak. This was a good deal. I think this sold at auction, 18 bids, $102 plus $18 shipping. I think that's a good book to get. It's low priced. It's a lot lower price than Darth Malak's first comic appearance. So, but if and when Revan and Malak come to live action content, they're going to dig into his origin story, and this is that book. I think this is a good one to consider. Some more data points for Darth Vader #3, which is again Dr. Aphra's first appearance along with her murder droids. And I'm really surprised this book continues to stay low. And this was a fantastic deal, $305 plus $20 shipping, so let's call it $325. That seems to be about where it's hovering these days, is about $325. I really should pick up another one of these because it's such a great deal. This one sold for $340, so a couple data points there. This one, is a little bit expensive. I think that whoever bought this overpaid for this one. This is the second print, red cover. You can tell the different printings, #1 because of the CGC label, but also the book itself, the cover has got different colors. So the first print is like a purplish, the second print is reddish, I think the third print is green, and then the fourth print is an even deeper, darker bluish purple. Then this is the dark purple. There's a lighter purple, I think, for the fourth print. But the second print, you shouldn't pay more than about $200 for the second print. The $300 was what someone bid on this one. That's way, way high. That's way high. If you're going to spend $300, get the first print. That's what I would do personally, or save up and get the third print. The third print is a lot lower printed than the second print or the first print. The fourth print would be the most expensive, with the exception of the Laraka 1:25 ratio variant. Next, we got a couple data points for Kanan the Last Padawan #6. This is again, of course, the first full comic book appearance of the Rebels team, specifically Sabine Wren, Ezra Bridger. That one sold for $600 on 18 bids. That one just closed on the 19th of this month. That's a great deal, $618 with shipping. Great deal on that one. This one sold for $650 plus $13 shipping. And this one sold for $700 with $25 shipping. So let's call it $600 to $700 is roughly the price range. So that's pretty much flat. It hasn't moved off of that. It did get, I saw a few that have sold as high as $850, but I think if you're patient in an auction, $600 to $650 is very doable for this book, and I would recommend getting this one. I picked it up because I'm a firm believer that this book has a big future. This one I thought was another good deal. I really wanted to get it, but I just don't want to spend any money right now. This is Star Wars Rogue One adaptation #1. Obviously, the first full comic book appearance of Jenna Erso, and I think Saul Guerrera and Cassian Andor and K2SO, and we all know that Cassian Andor is going to have his own show here soon. That one sold for $157.50. I think that's a great deal for the standard white cover. There is a darker black cover that's a little bit more expensive. Probably looking at more like $250 for that one. There's also a Walmart variant cover for that book. Here's a data point for Solo adaptation #1. Now, the reason, #1, you got young Lando's first appearance, Daniel Glover, I think his name is, but you also got Kira's first appearance. And Kira is obviously made her reappearance within the Crimson Reign comic line that Marvel just put out here this month. So whether we see her again in live action content, I don't know, but it sure seems like they're leaning that way. I mean, I haven't seen her in the actress, I haven't seen her really in anything else. So I could very easily see her making an appearance, a surprise appearance in the Book of Boba Fett. This one sold for $275, and that's way up. I mean, it's gone up. It was about $200 to maybe $225-ish all through this year. But as we're creeping towards the Book of Boba Fett, it does seem like people are starting to spend, and now with her reappearing in Crimson Reign, it just seems like they're speculating that Kira is going to have a more important kind of role within the Star Wars universe moving forward. Maybe it doesn't happen. I don't know. But either way, it's a nice book to have. You get, the first appearance of young Lando, and you got Kira's first appearance. So it's a great book to have, and it's a great cover too. Next, I got some more moderns. We got Star Wars: The Rise of Kylo Ren #3. This is a book I had recommend picking up because it's the first cameo appearance of Avar Kriss it's the first cameo appearance of Avar Kriss, who is one of the main heroes within the High Republic universe. I was recommending people pick this one up at about $100 to $125. Now it's selling for $205. This seller had two of them listed at $205 plus shipping, so let's call that about $220. So it's moved up almost 50% in value since I talked about buying this one. And I think I missed my window. I think I missed my window to get one. But Rise of Kylo Ren, it's a great cover. It's a, what's his name? Clayton Crane cover. So he's a pretty well-known artist, obviously, but it's a very epic look to that cover. And now $225 or $220 is about the going rate for this book. But I still think you can find it for cheaper in an auction. But I think the days of $100 to $125 are pretty much over now with, you know, they recently announced Star Wars Eclipse, the video game. There's a lot of heavy rumors that there's going to be a High Republic universe movie. So Avar Kriss is one of the top 3 heroes within that universe. So this book is going to continue, I think, to go up. But I think my days of 125 are over. This is one that I don't know if we talked a little bit about it as it related to the Obi-Wan. But this is the first comic appearance of the Seventh Sister, I believe is her name. Part of the Inquisitorius, who were tasked with eliminating the Jedi after Order 66. You know, whatever Jedi survived Order 66, the Inquisitorius were tasked with tracking those down. So we've already seen some concept art for the Obi-Wan Disney series, and we did see what looked like the Seventh Sister. And this is her first comic book appearance. This is Jedi Fallen Order Dark Temple. I don't know the exact name of the Seventh Sister, but it's one of the Inquisitorius, but there's a more specific name that they use for the character that appears in this book. She was the main villain within the video game. But this book has really jumped up. This one sold for $100, but there is a black version, like an alternate variant cover that sold for like $500. So that one's a lot more difficult to find in a 9.8. But if you want that book, this is probably the one to get at a reasonable cost. I just haven't seen many of them come up, but this is one I'd love to get. This Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order Dark Temple #1. So definitely be on the lookout for that one. That one sold for $100 plus $20 shipping. Another one that I really want to get is this one. This is Star Wars High Republic, but this is the Walmart variant. These are not hard to find, but they're selling pretty consistently now for between $90 and about $120. This one sold for $102.50, but it's just an awesome cover with Skier and Keith Trennis and Yoda on the cover. But a lot of people don't like Walmart editions for comics. They just don't think they ever go anywhere. But I don't know. I think Star Wars The High Republic #1, there were so many different covers, and they were so heavily printed, and there's so many that are in a CGC 9.8 that I would rather either go towards later printings, like 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th printings, or get one of these variant covers like this Walmart edition, where we know that the print run is a lot less than the standard covers. Finally, again, going back to Avar Kriss, here's her cover with Yoda. This is one I've got 2 of. This is Star Wars The High Republic #1. This is the Stephanie Hans variant cover. If you're going to go for one of the standard covers and not go for like this one, which is the Walmart edition, you know, for about the same price, you can get this one. This one sold for $91 plus shipping. I think this is the one to get because it's got Avar Kriss on the cover. It's just an awesome cover. So this is a lot of these were books we've covered before, but I wanted to give you kind of an update on prices, specifically as it relates to Book of Boba Fett content and Obi-Wan content, because a lot of these bounty hunters were probably going to make an appearance in the show at some point. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. This will probably be my last video for a few days. So I hope everyone has a great Christmas and holiday season, however you celebrate. And I'll be back next week at some point once the house calms down and there's less chaos. But have a great holiday, and I'll talk to you soon.